Indoors can be some of the trickiest things to film. Limited space and poor lighting are common in these conditions, which leads to grainy and noisy footage. So how can we fix this? Well, we could grab a few light stands, diffusion, and some fancy lenses and solve it. But what if you don't have all of that? What if you're just starting out and have limited equipment? In my DSLR Basics tutorial for ISO, I went over purchasing some lighting equipment in order to give your shots a more professional look, and to get rid of grain in the process. The reason for grain in your films is the lack of light. No light, no fun. Once you've opened up the lens to its maximum size, and we're still too dark, what do? We can somewhat cheat this fact by bumping up the ISO in our camera, but this is the direct cause of all of that noisy footage. The ISO setting in your camera is essentially artificial light. Light that doesn't actually exist, but our camera tries to make it a reality. And the harder it has to guess, the more and more our image starts to look fuzzy and unappealing. Some cameras are better at guessing the more sensitive you try and make the ISO, but any camera still looks best at a native 100 ISO. So here's some tips to make your footage look much better without buying expensive professional lighting gear and lenses. Step 1. Turn off the lights. What? Yeah. While the lights in your house do a good job of helping you not run into things throughout the days and nights, they do a terrible job at making your footage look like a movie. And a great job at giving you that 90s camcorder look. The lights in most houses are designed to simply light the room, not make it look like a movie set. The light they put out tends to be very hard light, casting hard shadows, and many times the bulbs have a heavy yellow tint, making everything look bad. So to get the most out of your films, it's best to start with a fresh slate. Step 2. Open up the windows. I mean, don't literally open them, but do pull away the curtains and open up those blinds. The sun is one of the best and most free pieces of lighting equipment that you have at your disposal for a large portion of the day. The light that will come pouring into your windows will be nice and soft because it has been diffused several times by the atmosphere, and then again once it enters your window. This gives the light that hits your skin a nice transition in the shadows and softens the skin and the features of whatever is in the room. This gives you a nice, pleasant look that gives good dynamic range in the scene. While contrast is the difference between dark and light, dynamic range is how many shades are in between black and white, while still retaining detail, and that is what we want. Soft light and a large range of different light strengths everywhere in between. Step 3. Plan around your lights. If you're going to be using a window as a main light source, you need to plan your scene around it. Your main light is your key light, and everything else is your fill light, which helps fill in the spots that are too dark, or even a third light called a rim light. We'll get into that later. If you're going to utilize the free light from the window, try and plan the scene's movements and placement with that in mind. That way, you can always ensure your subjects are properly lit. Step 4. Lamps. You don't need expensive lighting equipment to have good lighting. Chances are you already have some lamps somewhere in your house. Or you know someone with some lamps that you could be like, hey, could I borrow one of your lamps this weekend? I need it for a project I'm doing. And lamps are great fill and rim lighting, setting the mood and helping give your subject either a dark, sinister look or a more standard look. They can be found everywhere and are useful even when you aren't planning a shoot. Step 5. Diffuse. If you're going to be using these lamps in your scene, you want to soften up the lights as much as possible to prevent hard shadows in your scenes. Diffusion is just a fancy term for scattering light. And the more angles you can scatter the light, the more directions the light will reach your subject from, resulting in softer shadows. Instead of buying a diffuser online, you can use the things you probably already have in your house for diffusion, such as the dryer sheets, bed sheets, and even toilet paper. Simply make the light pass through the diffusion material and voila, softer light. But what if the room you're shooting in has no windows, only the lights in the ceiling? Step 6. Upgrade the light bulbs in your house. If you're really struggling with grainy footage indoors, even with the lights on, your lights in your house just aren't strong enough. And chances are the lights in your house are that awful yellow tint that seems to be everywhere, so you should probably replace them. Here's a test you can do to see if you need brighter lights in the house. On a very sunny day, turn the light in your house and go outside for 5 minutes. Then walk back inside. If you walk into the house and have to wait a few moments for your eyes to adjust, then your house is simply too dark. But which bulbs to buy? Your standard issue house light is a 60-watt soft white bulb from any store that sells them. What you're going to want is a 100-watt equivalent bulb or brighter, preferably LED, and one that says daylight on the package. LED bulbs use much less power, don't get as hot, and last a very long time compared to your standard bulbs, so you're doing yourself a favor anyways. Here's 3 of your standard 60-watt soft white bulbs lighting up the room. Notice the strong yellow tint off the walls and the overall poor image that we get from this light. Now here's 3 100-watt equivalent LED daylight bulbs from your local store. Notice how the light in the room is much closer to what it should be color-wise, and we're able to have much better, less grainy footage because of it. It also just feels better to be in the room, and it's easier to find stuff too. This is the least recommended route, but being a last resort is likely your best option. Plus, you'll probably navigate your house a little easier, and the people who visit your house will thank you for it too. The 7th and final step, slowly upgrade your arsenal. Yes, this isn't a step that's free, but is one that is very important if you're truly serious about making better looking videos. Things don't always have to happen instantly. Take the time to save a little at a time each week, and work hard at getting better and better with what you have. As your skill grows, your equipment will grow with it, and things like this take time. It might seem hard to work with limited equipment, but you'll become a much better filmmaker because of it. It's not about how hard something is to accomplish. It's about how worth it will be in the end. I'm Sean Michael Jordan, this is Route 1 Reels, and I hoped I helped you capture better footage for your films. Please consider subscribing if you already haven't, and a thumbs up if it helped you out. As always, I'll see you next week. So it's the day after I finished the first video. Here we are, first video. I'm gonna take you through what I do. I have never edited videos before. Oh, trash can.